Hello and welcome back to 3D Drawing for your model by wagon. Having completed the jacks on the last lesson on the chassis, I'm going to be looking to move back to the runner and continuing on with the underframe. Now today what I'm going to look at is adding in the handbrake details. If you look at the pictures, unfortunately the pictures that I've got of the other side of the crane aren't great, but it does look like this part here is all symmetrical. So on the other side this looks exactly the same, with the handbrake turned round and it's going the other direction on the other side. So what I'm going to do is go back in the history to before we did the mirror and add these parts here into the underframe, and then we'll come back to the beginning and then add the pivot points here. Okay, so jumping into Fusion, first thing I'm going to do is select the runner radio button. I'm going to turn off the crane body and chassis just so we're looking at this clean chassis here. Okay, so let's find the mirror object. Okay, so I think it's this one, so we'll history mark back here. Okay, so here we've only got one side, so we can draw the symmetrical parts. Okay, so you can see nice and clearly here where we need to be. So we're going to start by just drawing a sketch onto the trussing here. Okay, so I'm going to start by just doing a rectangle initially that's going to be on the side of the frame here. Dimension that to the end, 6, height, that's what we've done. The length of it, I'm going to change that to 1.5. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is draw two diagonal lines and find the midpoint. I'm going to follow that midpoint up like that and down. So they're now symmetrical. What we need to do is round off the top edge like that. So we're using the fillet tool, just select the corner. You can drag this until you've got it in the position you're happy with. So I think about 0.4 for me. We'll dimension that to there. There. That's already dimensions, that shouldn't need doing again. That's already dimensioned in that direction. Let's try dimensioning that. Already done. Maybe it just wants to be dimensioned to that point. Nope, that's already done. I think maybe this is just one of those buggy things in Fusion where it doesn't seem to be locking for some reason. Okay, the next thing we'll do is create the hole. Is it a hole or is it? It's going to be an extrusion forward. So before I do that, I'm going to extrude these. So if we look at the picture, it comes ever so slightly forwards. We're going 0.2. It's already joining, which is fine. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is draw that linkage arm here. So it's quite fat at the bottom and it slopes in. I don't think this plan is quite to scale, but it depends which way you want to go about this. Okay, so we'll draw a new sketch on that back surface. Okay, so on that back surface here, I'm going to put a circle and use a center point here. I'm going to draw it slightly large because it does look slightly large, although it would hang into this frame here. I think it just looks better being at a slightly larger size there. Let's dimension that. 1 millimeters. And I'll draw a circle at this end, try and find the centre point as best I can. And be slightly smaller, so I'm going to go 0.6 at this end. Let's have a look at the picture. So I'm going to go with 0.6 on that. 0.6. Seems to be playing up. Let's try again. 0.6. 0.6. Let's try. Why is it playing up? 0.6. Seems like since they've done this latest update with Fusion, it keeps being a bit buggy when you add in dimensions. It's not adding them properly for some reason, the keyboard or something. It's only since the new update, so it must be something they've done, I think. Okay, so let's add some lines in here to try and join these up. So we're going to go from there to there. That's already tangent itself at that end. Let's define the height here so it doesn't move. And we'll define its height. So it defines distance from that point so it doesn't move. And then we'll tangent the line to the circle. And then we'll do the same. That's tangent at that point. So add tangency to that end. I might actually just move this up slightly. So if I change that to 0.4, a bit more I think, 0.6, yeah, 0.6, I'm going to go with that. Okay, so now we're going to extrude all of these profiles here. I'm not worried about this one underneath because it's obviously inside the frame. I'm going to extrude, don't forget this one, towards me. I'm going to come up against the side frame there, and it's joining, which is good. Okay, so next thing is we want to put obviously the pivot point on the middle here. So if we create a sketch on that surface, it's already going to snap to the circle that's behind it. And we're going to 0.5 millimeters. I'm just going to extrude this forward slightly. So 0.2 millimeter. And then we're going to add some rivets in the bottom. I'm going to go in the midpoint. 1.3. Position there. 0.25, I think. Normal technique of doing rivets, we drag them at 0.3 radius, 0.15 forwards, and then fillet 0.15 off the corner to make that dome shape. And then I'm going to pattern the feature, selecting the fillet and the extrusion in the direction of horizontal. We need 3 of them. And click on OK. There we go. Okay, so we've now got that hinge pretty much drawn on there. If we look at the picture, we've got this looks like a straight bar coming upwards. I'm not going to do the little hole in it, and I'm not going to do it as 2 separate bodies because I think they would just be too thin and flimsy. So I'm just going to do it as one solid bar there. Obviously, we've got to think about the position of the handbrake being either on or off. I believe upwards is off, so we're going to draw it to the positions it is on the drawing. So we're creating a sketch now on the front of this surface here. We're going to do a rectangle shape. We start at the top corner and we can drag it. I don't want to snap into that because that'll be a constraint that I don't want. So we've got it there, so we're going to define the height, 0.25. Actually, I'm going to come down 0.2. Define that height as 2.45 and the thickness 0.4, and what it needs to define distance horizontally. So there. Okay, I'm going to fill it off the corners because it's got rounded ends. The warnings are because the dimensions are going to the end points in the corners. Okay, I'm going to do 0.15 on the corners there. And then we're going to extrude, so select these 3 profiles. Try not to get the constraints there. And I'm going to extrude in two directions. The front one, I'm going to go, actually let's have a look at the picture, is it inside or outside? It is outside. So I'm going to bring the front one forwards 0.1 and the back one, although it's initially cutting, look, I'm going to tell it to join in a second. I'm going to come back to that back edge and forwards 0.1 on there, tell it to join. Click on OK. Catch up. Okay, so that's that linkage in that position. Next thing we can do is, you can see how on the drawing the handbrake's in the same position in two different sides. So this is the sketch that we're looking at this side, and there's the one for the other side there, which is quite handy when we go to draw the other one actually. So what I'm going to draw now is just the two hinge points here. So there's one, I'm going to go 0.2, 0.2, keeps changing again, 0.2. And same, we'll get it in line, move to the top. I can't see that canvas on. There's the point we're after. It's playing up again that dimension. Let's have the canvas back on, see if that position. Yeah, that position looks quite good actually. Let's define its height there. And that one. Do that one. And then we can extrude both of these circles just forwards ever so slightly. Okay, so there's our linkage drawn in. If you wanted to, you could cut through there, but I think it's quite thin. It's only it's 1 millimeter wide. So if you start cutting through there, you might create it to be a little bit too flimsy, or you might find that when you print it, the resin just fills the hole anyhow. I'm just going to keep it like that for strength, because I think this will be quite flimsy and weak. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to drill is the pivot point, the handbrake arm, and the locking mechanism here. I'm going to create these as one complete new body, so that I can then copy them around and just paste them on the other side. So first thing I want to draw is this upright here. I'm going to create a sketch. Ooh, where's it gone? Weird. Let's come out of that. Let's escape the sketch, finish it, start again, just in case that created on the wrong plane. Right, that's on the correct surface. Let's turn off canvas, create a sketch on that body there. Canvas back on. Okay, it's going to use a rectangle, and if we look at the picture here, it goes from above to below. So actually it doesn't actually go all the way up to the top after, so it only comes up to about here. So if we create and drag that down like that, I do want it touching this one because I need it to have that rigidity. So find the width is 0.4, distance from the edge, let's try again, distance from that corner to corner, 0.81, and its height 5.4, and height from the bottom to the corner 1.35. Okay, if we select these profiles and then extrude, turn the canvas off so we can see what we're looking at. So we're going to need to extrude again two-sided. So I'm going to come forwards, not too much. 0. Let's go 0.2, and I'm going to extrude backwards that surface there, which is 0.5, and tell it to join. So I know it's going to be a little bit fat and over scale, but realistically we do need to have the strength where it's touching here and here. And if you look at the photograph, it sits out at the front here, but it is recessed into the sole bar. Okay, I'm not going to draw all these little holes and stuff on there because they will just fill in with resin when you print it anyhow. Let's actually go back to this and tell that to be edit the feature, and we want that to be a new body. Okay, so the next thing I need to draw, turn the canvas back on, is this pivot arm here. I'm going to create a sketch on that front surface so that it's the same as here. You see it's this flat surface here, it's matching the bottom of the sole bar there. So it's going to use the line tool. I'm going to get one side lined up, and I'm lining this up to the drawing. I'm not worrying about the length of it at the moment because they're going to intersect each other. Do one like that, and then do the line on the other side. Try not to get that constraint. There's a midpoint constraint here somewhere there. I don't want that. I want it to be off the side slightly so it's not intersecting it. And we just cross these over so they match. The angles look slightly different there. That's better, I think. And then we can use the trim tool just to take those two off there. Not sure what constraint that's looking at there. And then we can use the fillet tool to round this corner off. That's way too much. Okay, so go 0.25 there and finish the sketch. Doesn't quite look symmetrical. Actually, I'm going to go about this a different way. Let's go back using the undo button. Let's draw a line that goes from there to there. Okay, to find that length of that line, that's 1 millimeter. And then we can use the line tool to do this. So we get from there to there, we've got a perfect triangle there, and then we can fillet the tool there. So it's not going to quite match the drawing, but it looks better because for me it's symmetrical, it looks neater. Okay, let's define the distance from there. Let's go to that. Let's find a point where it'll match. That point there will do. Okay, and again it's going to have that buggy fusion thing where it won't like to fully define that. I'm going to extrude this one inwards. I'm just going to go back, say 0.8 millimeters, and tell it to be a new body again. So we're getting a few new bodies in here that we'll have to join up. So we're going to have 15, 16. What is body 6? Oh, wait a minute. We've not moved these forwards. That's not moved forwards. Okay. Let's jump that history all the way to the front. Okay, and then I'm hoping that I can just find these two sketches. Excuse me while I find all these. So it's that one just before the shell. There. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select those 4, and then I'm going to hopefully be able to move them to the end. Seems to have bugged up again a little bit. That one, that one. We should, if we can drag them beyond that mirror point, we should not copy them over on the mirror. That's it. So I'm happy to do them in this position here because they're beyond the mirror point there, which is what I'm after. So the error I've made is this crashed a second ago before I started this, and it's gone back before the mirror point. So I've just moved these back beyond the mirror point. So now they're not going to be on both sides, they're just on that one side there. Okay, so drawing this handbrake arm is now going to be quite a challenge. Okay, so we're going to have to move this pivot point we've drawn inboard so it matches the same height as this one, because there's no kink there. The kink comes out after it. So I think what's different is our position of our hanger truss rods here is different to the front here. So I'm just going to edit this slightly. If I extrude that into the back of that surface, and that's it. And then draw a line on there to separate that profile. I can then extrude that backwards to that point there. And we can have our kink in to go into here and then straight into that one. Yeah, much happy with that. Okay, so I found the issue is where we've extruded this and changed some things. If you look at this sole bar thickness here, it changes at this point here. So this one here changes the thickness of the sole bar. So I'm going to delete that feature, jump back to the end. That's now recessed. That's now recessed. There you go. Problem solved. Simple things that, you know, sometimes you do one change and inadvertently when you change something else that changes your original part. Okay, so let's have a look at both sides. So on the, put these bits back on 60, which way around we're looking at it. So we've got a handbrake coming up this direction on this side, and then if you flip it around, it's now drawn on the other side with the linkages. You probably should have this rod going all the way through here. So what we can do is, if we create a sketch on that surface, just create a circle, same diameter, so 5 millimeters, and then extrude all the way through. That surface, tell it to join. That will then join all of its lot up together, it says, hopefully. The rod's gone all the way through. So we will have to join two handbrake arms here. So if we combine those now, let's select the body, so that's body 3, and then control to select 15 and 19 bodies, which are the two handbrake arms that we've drawn. Click on OK. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to leave this episode here. It's quite a long one here, just to draw a couple of handbrake things, but at least the detail's starting to add on now and starting to look a bit more detailed than it was before. So I'm happy with that. If you've got any comments, please leave them below. Please also make sure you like and subscribe to the video. Thanks for watching.